Flying Joe. Know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 675, Scream 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. Does it have a name? Is it just Scream?
It's Scream. They just did the Halloween thing. They just called it Scream.
I'm surprised you didn't go with 5 Cream.
But yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah, it's a dumb thing that I have a feeling it's. I mean, the
Wait a
new
minute,
Texas
what's
Chainsaw the idea that they're not giving it a number anymore.
No, it's perfect. They explain it in the movie. This movie is so self-aware.
Yeah, but it's also what they're doing with Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, there's no numbers anymore, so it's just there's 3 Halloweens, 78.
It's a
but this one is
requel.
different.
Like they perfectly explain. Like,
yeah, they do mock themselves for it. But
there's a total reason for it, and they explain it, and it's so self-aware.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess before we dig in, we should go around the virtual table, and everyone can identify themselves.
This is Joe.
Hi, I identify as Kevin.
And I also identify as Kevin. Now what are you going to do?
Free country.
I identified as Joe. That's as far as I can get.
And this is Tom. We are once again doing this over Zoom because we have COVID in the O'Keefe household.
It's your fault this time.
We had a good run, and we made it pretty deep into the pandemic without getting it. But
I mean, if you could make it to 2022, that's pretty good. You know,
amazing how the dominoes started falling.
Yeah, but
Joe was around it, and then my house got it, and now Tom's house has it. It's like, what?
So far, I have not gotten it. My son has it, and my wife.
You better knock on some wood, brother.
My wife is feeling wonky, but she keeps testing negative, so I don't, and I feel fine.
You got to go get the test.
Yeah, so
because the home tests. Just for the listeners out there, so you understand, and if you're monitoring and you care about this stuff.
We're turning another Joe Rogan podcast.
No, well, no. First of all, because we're saying get tested and get the vaccine.
That's true. We're giving you actual information.
But my wife tested. Tested negative. She called her work, and she works in the healthcare industry or field, I guess. She's not a rep or anything, but she works in the hospital system, and so she said, "Hey, I've got cold systems. I tested negative at home." And they're like, "Yeah, we're going to need you to come in and take they didn't say this, but a real test. Come get an actual PCR test." And she went in not an hour later or whatever and tested positive. So you can't trust completely the home test. They're nice peace of mind, I guess, but
Science Corner.
Yeah.
So anyway, Crystal is going in to get her test tomorrow from the medical trial that we're in because we did the vaccine study. So
that's good. I hope she doesn't have it. I mean, at least you guys are vaccinated and everything, but it's not fun. I mean, take it from me that Katie had it the last week, and it's not a fun thing to get. Even
I would say Brian's symptoms have been super mild, like totally not a big deal. So
awesome.
And he got out of 2 finals, the lucky son of a bitch.
That's all right.
Yeah, they 2 classes because it would happen like the first day of finals. He tested positive, and two of his teachers were like, don't worry about it. We'll just
good enough.
We'll take the grade you got. I'm like, okay, man.
So is that what the kids are doing now? Having COVID parties right
before
finals?
Right before finals.
It's the old if your roommate dies of a suicide in college, you get a semester of A's.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's the new thing. You ever see Dead Man on Campus?
Yeah, Dead Man on Campus. That was the whole plot of it. It was A's, or I thought it was B's, but still.
You basically pass without
You pass
having
everything
to,
if your
roommate commits suicide.
I think it was if your roommate dies, right? Like it's.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I thought it was suicide because they're like actively trying to kill their roommate.
Yeah.
I was going to compare it to chicken pox, but okay.
Sure, that too.
It is a movie podcast, though. So. Before we dig in, shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find a podcast, you can find us. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group, and you can also become a member of the League of Show Sharers simply by sharing an episode, which we greatly appreciate. People who were kind enough to share an episode this week: Chris Valls, Travis Tewitt, Chris Magic Man, Brent Smith, Ralph Tribble, Gabriel Lugo, Tammy Sherman Powers, Heather Sachs, Lane Levanway, Julianne Jordan, David Rojas, Edward Fairfax, Ronnie Castle, Chris Williams, Matt Neglia, Chris Wilson, Ken Holtzhauser, Invasion of the Remake, Linda Wright, In Session Film, Binge Movies, Two Views Movies, Colby Mack, Geek to Me Radio, Ryan Terry from the Force a Crowd podcast, Feel and Film, Cinema Recall, The Movie Journey podcast, The Manic Pixie Weirdo podcast, Spoiler Piece Theater, Collateral Cinema, Mike, and Oscar, and Vertigay 314. Also, he has a podcast called It Pod to Be You, which I was actually on. The
Nice.
most recent episode. So his podcast is all about movies about falling in love. That's his sole topic.
Is that like your jam?
Is that my jam?
Yeah.
Well, Licorice Pizza is his jam,
But
so he was on
but-
that
is that
episode.
what-
the movie was
Oh,
Licorice
I'm
Pizza,
sorry.
and so
I'm with you.
Yeah, so he asked if I wanted.
listens to one podcast.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't know if like movies where like romantic movies is kind of like your
like each
I was like,
episode
that-
he
this is-
tackles a
I
different
gotta tell
movie
you,
about
600
falling
plus
in love.
episodes in. This is new information that I did not have
Yeah.
about Tom's taste in movies. I am
So
No wonder he doesn't like any of the movies we
Yes.
talk about. We rarely talk about
it was
romantic movies.
pretty much Age
He
of Adeline,
begs
and
us-
everything else sucked.
yeah. He has put on the schedule that we're doing the new J-Lo movie.
Yes.
Whatever that is, where she falls in love with Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But
That's all.
but anyway,
Yeah.
since we didn't get around to Licorice Pizza, if people want to hear at least one of us talk about it, you can go over there and check out It Pod to Be You. And finally, don't forget we're on Patreon, patreon.com/Real Spoilers, where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content, and you help us out, and that is greatly appreciated.
And all the Scream movie. We have 1 and 2 are up now.
Well, 3 will be up by the time they're listening.
Oh, okay. So 3 will be up with Matt Basler, which is always fun. And then 4 I'm working on. I think I've got 4 ready to go. And hopefully we'll have it out. It won't be out before this one, but you don't really need 4 for this.
I mean, there's stuff from all
There's
of them.
a
but-
little bit, but not too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So anyway, there's all that. Let's dig into Scream 5 Scream.
Okay, so first, Tom, what did you think of this movie?
I thought this was really good.
Yeah, okay.
I
All
thought-
right, we're going to be okay.
I think if you like Scream movies, this does exactly what you would want from it. And I think that, and I remember liking the fourth. The only one I remember not really liking was the third one.
Right.
That's
the
least,
weakest
liked.
of
Yeah.
Yes.
the
And
series, yeah.
I remember the fourth one being really solid and just tanking hard.
Yeah.
There's
There's a steady decline. Like if you look at the box office, and the only reason I know this because I'm doing these episodes, is 1 is the highest grossing, 2 is the second, 3 is the third, 4 is the fourth. So it's just diminishing returns. And I think 1, 2, and 4 are all written by Kevin Williamson. 3 is not, and it's very obvious that it is not.
And so that's the difference with this one. So this one is not written by Kevin Williamson, but it feels like a Kevin Williamson Scream movie.
It's a little less funny. There's a little less humor. But yes, I would agree with you.
But there's plenty of humor in the movie. I mean, there's two characters in particular very funny, and so that's what I think really makes this movie solid. And I really enjoyed it too. And they did a really great job of keeping in the spirit of the Scream movies and the Kevin Williamson style. It's ultra meta, it's ultra aware and self-referential. It's updated for modern times, and it's funny and it's scary. So this movie feels like a Scream movie, even though, I mean, of course, you have the 3 lead characters come back, but other than that, Wes Craven, rest in peace. Scream 4 was his last movie, right? that he directed.
Yes, I think so.
So, they do a really nice job of honoring Wes in more ways than one by making a movie true to the spirit of the others, and also by literally honoring him in the movie, throughout the movie.
Yeah, right.
So they did a really great job, and these are the guys that wrote and directed Ready or Not. So we all loved that movie on the podcast, directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, Tyler Gillette. Those are the co-directors. And then written by Guy Busick, who also wrote on Ready or Not. And then James Vanderbilt has a writing credit up for the screenplay of this as well. And his name was not on Ready or Not. So I'm not sure.
Interesting.
I wonder if they had a script that they retooled.
He was born in 1975. He was a writer known for Zodiac, Independence Day Resurgence, Basic, which is a 2003 movie. So he's been around a while. So I wonder if he got pulled in somehow from the studio or something, or like you said, maybe had been developing it, because it doesn't seem like he's a radio silence guy like the other ones.
There's the three of them. It's the three guys who are the
but I
radio
mean, I
silent
don't know
guys.
if they have like friends that sometimes do stuff on crew with them. You know what I mean? Like they could have been like another guy that they pulled in from working with them on something else.
Sure.
But so it seems like he's the guy that they pulled into this. But the other three guys are the radio silence guys who, of course, did stuff on the VHS movies and Ready or Not, which we all loved. Hats off to them for making a Scream movie which pays tribute and is true to all the previous films, but also amps things up.
I think the thing that people kind of forget about the Scream movies is, much like the first Halloween, there is in the first Scream, there's the opening scene with Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend that is uber violent, right?
But that's pretty much it.
That's it.
And it's not violent in the way that like you even see it happening. You see the aftermath.
You do see
of
it.
it.
Well, his guts do. when the boyfriend is tied to the chair in the original cut, when the
there's
killer
a more
turns
gory
the lights,
director's cut
yes.
too, though.
There was a theatrical cut where his guts fall out, and then they were like, "Hey, that's not okay." And then they
redid it for home
Yes.
video. Okay,
Yes.
so the one that most people saw wasn't even that gory, and then of course since DVD, like they've re-put out that one. So other than that opening scene, but like this one, you see the stuff happening, and that's the difference. Is aside from the opening of 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, there's killing, there's violence, but you don't see the gore. And these guys clearly know how to do gore if you've seen their other work.
Oh yeah,
and so they made like this perfect amalgamation of the previous Scream movies, but then also for the horror and the gore lovers, they amped everything up. And this movie, I think, hands down, has the best kills of the entire series.
There's some pretty dope kills.
I just watched all of them in a row, and I'm like, I never saw anything like this in the other ones.
Yeah. Well, okay, so in 3, the issue they run into is Columbine. So they're filming that. It comes out in 2000, I think. And the wine scenes are like, cut everything out. All the gore, all the violence, cut it all out. And it basically becomes a Scooby-Doo movie. Like, that's basically what 3 is.
I'll tell you what, 3, and I know that there's an episode out there with Matt F. Bassler, but 3, when you see the creepy producer guy who's
it's a little spot on.
sexually assaulting his actors.
Yep.
That's a character in Scream 3, produced by
the Weinsteins.
It is so.
You want to talk about meta?
It's so gross to watch, and then you got to think like they watched
It's like the
that.
chili episode of the Bill Cosby Show.
Oh yeah, you're right. Seriously, it's the same kind of feeling,
Yeah.
and like I just kept thinking to myself, the Weinsteins clearly watched this and approved it, and were watching. They were supervising it and everything. So like, just to think that like no one said anything or changed anything or thought like maybe, I don't know. It's just gross.
It almost makes you wonder if it was kind of a dig.
Well, that's
it was absolutely a dig.
But that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, well, are they really kind of hiding that in there? But then I thought, how did he approve it? You know what I mean? Like, it's just a weird
But
thing.
what's he supposed to say?
Well, I think on the podcast
Too
we
much
kinda
like
say
me.
that Matt and I guessed that it's probably he thought he was too powerful, and he was like, "Yeah, go ahead. I don't care. I don't care that it's in there. What are you gonna do? It's a movie. Who's gonna believe you?"
But it is
He was
weird.
so
if you go
power
back
drunk.
in current times and
look
watch
how much
3.
Cosby talked about Spanish Fly, right? Like
Totally.
I mean,
you're absolutely right.
I mean,
And it was just like, oh, it's a joke.
He talked about it in a book he wrote called Childhood. Like, right? I mean,
I forgot.
the balls.
Yeah.
The balls to do that,
So, but this movie, though, again, takes what you love if you're a fan of the Scream franchise, but then amps it up and delivers the gore that horror fans crave. Like, you get the kills to where, horror movies to me, and I'm not a huge horror guy, I've become one over the years because we've been covering them, and I've found a lot of the classics and everything. A lot of it thanks to discussions with these guys and people online. But to me, it seems like horror fans are all about the kills. Like, oh, this movie has great kills, and this movie actually don't debate it. I'm not arguing about this, Joe. I'm saying in general, horror fans love good kills. That's all I'm saying. And this movie delivers on the kills, which is really great.
Yeah. I think if you're going into a Halloween movie, or it depends on the movie and the kills and if you are expecting certain kind of kills. I will tell you, going into a Scream movie, I was not expecting the level of gore and intense violence, and not in a bad way, but that's not what I was expecting. So I appreciate it. And, we see that in Ready or Not, that they can deliver that. I was not expecting
I think these are horror guys. That's what they do, right? VHS movies. You've seen Ready or Not. Like these guys do horror, and they are about the gore and the kills, and so they bring what they're really good at into this movie while also not changing. Like it feels like a Scream movie, right? It didn't feel like, oh, this is a weird, like gory.
They're not
movie.
using Scream characters to make a Halloween.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels like Scream, but somehow when it comes to the Ghostface kills, it's like, whoa, we've never seen kills like this.
Right.
People in this movie, people aren't getting stuck in a doggy door in a garage. Like people are getting
ridiculous.
stabbed through the throat, and you see the knife through their throat. It's the kills are different, which I thought was a nice touch because one, you didn't expect it, but two, it's like times are different and you can show more stuff now. Like it used to be probably if you were to have kills like this,
this would not have
they
made
might say
this
it's X-rated, or something. You know what I mean?
In 1996, if you put this out, this is not getting past the MPAA.
Right?
You're making some cuts, no pun intended.
Exactly. So now it's like you can do that. So it's more to the time and what horror fans expect from these movies, not Scream, but of horror movies in general. And these guys are really good at it.
Yes. So we'll just get into it. This movie opens back in Woodsboro, which is the place that Scream 1 and Scream 4 take place. I think Scream 2 is in a college and Scream 3 is in Hollywood.
So people call this the Woodsboro trilogy.
I mean, I guess that makes sense.
1, 4, and 5. And they're just,
Yeah, if you want to stay in Woodsboro. But one of the things I will say about this franchise is there is not another horror franchise that has stuck with the final girl, quote unquote, this many times. The fact that Neve Campbell has been in every single one of these movies, and Courteney Cox as well, and David Arquette are the three that have stuck around the longest, is kind of impressive, like as far as continuity goes.
Well, because she's not a final girl. There's multiple survivors, so you can't really.
She's your main character, but she's not your final girl.
But that's also how Kevin Williamson flipped the script, though. And obviously, we won't go into all the Scream movies. But that's the thing, is that he rebooted horror, kind of. I mean, Scream was like another resurgence. It was fresh, right?
Yeah, horror was dead in 1996,
and he brought it back by being meta and self-referential and rewatching the movies. I mean, Scream, I've seen Scream 1 a million times. Scream 2 I had seen once. Scream 3 I had seen once. Scream 4 I couldn't even remember. I think I saw it once before my rewatch. So like I love. And
we weren't doing the show when that came out, were we?
It was 2011.
Oh, okay.
When I went back and watched them all, even the first one, watching it as I was older and everything, I'm like, man, these movies have always been so super meta. And in 96, people weren't writing movies like that.
No. And he, Kevin Williamson had a really good ear for teenagers, right? Like the dude wrote Dawson's Creek, which was one of, when I was a teenager, like that was the big show. Dawson's Creek played what did they play? Buffy. I think it was Buffy and Dawson's Creek were like the two shows that were playing back to back that were massive for people my age.
How did he not get those people in the movie? Like, why?
So he
James
does get.
I know he gets Buffy, but I'm saying like James Vanderbeek isn't in these movies.
James Vanderbeek was too big.
He probably couldn't afford him.
What? Yeah, that's it. Katie Holmes was in Disturbing Behavior. Vanderbeek was Varsity Blues, and then Scream 2, you do get Buffy and Joshua Jackson.
Yeah.
But for like, hey, can you be on set for like 30 minutes? Okay, cool. Thanks. Bye. So this one starts just like the original one. We're introduced to a character named Tara, and she's
Tara Carpenter.
Correct. And there are, I mean, if you go back and look at these, there's a reason Stu's last name is Meeker and Billy's last name is Loomis. Like, these are all Halloween characters.
Stu Macher.
Did I say
Meeker?
Meeker? Oh, maybe because Sheriff Meeker's in Halloween 4. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Stu Macher, yeah. So it's the exact same setup. She gets a phone call, and of course, this is the first meta aspect where the voice is talking about 80s horror and slashers, and she was like, oh, I kind of like the elevated stuff. Like, what's your favorite scary movie? The Babadook. And of course, a person of her age would like the Babadook, right? Like, that's the horror that she is introduced to. She doesn't know Freddy or Jason or Leatherface or Pinhead and all that stuff.
Which I think this is such a great discussion, because what do horror people hate?
This
when
is the
people
discussion.
say this. I mean, again, obviously these guys writing it are so they live in it, right? They're younger and they live in this. They love horror movies and everything. And people that from talking to them, from talking to Joe, from talking to Ryan Terry, people hate elevated horror. It's like, what is that? That's not stop. Don't call it elevated horror. All horror can be good. Don't be like, oh, this is so artsy, so it's the elevated. Like, there's good horror in all ranges of the genre.
I will say, I am of the mind that there are certain horror films that are above other ones, right? Like, there are smarter ones, and then there are dumber ones. Yeah. Doesn't mean either of them are bad. It just means that some of them are smarter than others.
But
if
that's
you
the thing,
call
is
that elevated, that's fine.
Yeah,
but
I don't like elevated because it means there's a snobbery about it. I always look at it more as like art house horror. Like, it's trying to scare you in a different way, and so it's using more psychological terror and ambiance, and
they're using maybe the wrong terminology, right? Like, we understand what they mean. It is more like art house, but when you say elevated, then it makes it seem like you're saying, oh, well, so Halloween 78 sucks. It's a piece of garbage because it's not smart. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's
totally.
Like, Halloween 78 is a masterpiece.
Yep.
So
it's a perfect movie.
Don't come in here saying that elevated horror just because Hereditary is more artistic, and that's a great movie too. But like, that doesn't mean Hereditary is so much better than Halloween. They're different movies.
Is it better
right?
than Friday the 13th Part 4? Yes.
Yes.
But that's a different movie. That's a
Exactly.
different kind of movie.
So this conversation's great, and what I really like about this scene is that they are doing the meta self-referential thing.
They reference Stab.
Yeah. The movies they're really good about referencing the movie within a movie type thing.
Yeah.
But they also update a lot of things with this, which I like, and they kind of flip the script on you. So like, you think you're kind of getting the same thing as the first movie, but also she doesn't die, right? So like, that's the first thing where someone always dies in the beginning of these movies.
Yeah. Well, it's always it's always a popular the Janet Leigh aspect, right? So nobody expected Drew Barrymore to die. Spoilers. In the first one, and then the second one, it's Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps, I think. And in the third one, it's Cotton Weary. And in I don't remember that.
But the fourth one is not.
Fourth one's like the movie within a movie within a movie gag,
which I think is brilliant, and that's why when I watch
it's Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin
for the movie within the movie, yeah,
right,
for Stab 7 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you don't really get knowns that die. That's just movie actors that die, right? So like, that's the thing though. Kevin Williamson comes back for 4, and again he does all that brilliant meta commentary that we see in the first two, and then this one captures that perfectly. Even without him, the spirit is there, but they surprise you, right? So you're like, oh well, this girl's gonna die clearly,
right?
And she doesn't,
and they definitely set it up like she does. They cut, she's getting stabbed 3 or 4 times in the back, and then it cuts to the Scream logo, and you're like, okay. You just assume, as you assume with these Scream movies, you're like, well, we've lost that character. She'll come back later as something else.
Ghostface asks the questions, so he redoes the thing, but he references the killer in the first movie, right? So he's like, they played a game, and, do you want to play a game? And, well, he's not the Saw guy, but you get the he's like, so he does the 3 questions thing. She fails, and he has a video clip that he sent. I'm saying they, Ghostface is a who knows who
spoilers,
they are.
It's they.
Yeah, so they.
It's always a they.
Not
in 3.
So
there's one killer in 3. That's what they.
So that okay. So in 3 it was supposed to be 2, and then they changed it. 3 is spoilers. 3 is Scott Foley as Sydney's brother. It was supposed to be Emily Mortimer and Scott Foley but they cut Emily Mortimer from the movie.
It's the movie director guy. That's the only killer in 3.
Yeah.
So anyway, which was, I mean, that kind of subverted expectations in 3 is, the movie isn't that great overall. It's okay, but it's like, hey, there weren't 2 killers. So they send a video clip of Tara's friend Amber, and they're watching Amber through a window. They have a knife up, and they're like, answer these questions right or else she's gonna die. She answers it wrong, and basically they say it's killing time, and so you get that aspect of it, so which is also a red herring for the whole thing, right?
As Scream does, it red herrings all around.
Right. So should we spoil it up front so we can talk about it later?
Sure. It's. I mean,
well, at least half of it. Should we spoil half right here? So
that Amber is one of them.
Amber's one of the killers, right? So they throw that at you right away. It's like, oh, well, there's a guy with a knife and she's getting ready and he's going to go kill her. Okay, well, she can't be the killer. And then they introduce a lot of technology stuff, which is cool, I think, for the update, right? So
I was going to ask you, Tom. We've said before that like you don't think we could do a slasher flick in 2021 because of all of the technology. How do you think they handled it here? As like, oh, maybe we can do this.
I don't remember that conversation.
Well, like it was kind of like you said that like everybody has a cell phone now, or you can only do like I don't have service for so long when you're not gonna everywhere is gonna have service. So it's just like I'm getting it's one phone call and you're like, hey, can you come to my house and stop this guy from killing me? And then the movie's over.
But they're smart. They're smart because in this one, it's her parents' house and her parents have a landline. I mean, 20 years from now, can you do that? Probably not. I don't think our generation is going to keep landlines for another 20 years. But I mean,
we have a landline now.
But for her parents, I mean, I think that was a pretty good solution where it's like,
God, that's almost like her grandparents. I mean, I'm 51. I have kids this age, and I don't have a landline.
yeah, but that's what but like they're the last people with landlines are hanging on, but her generation won't have one. They introduced this technology. They have smart doors, right? So Ghostface,
that was a good gag.
Yeah.
You've never had to deal with stuff like this before. Oh, she locks the door. She's safe, right? No, there's an app on her phone. We see that Ghostface, he says that Amber left her phone out and cloned.
Cloning of the cell phone. The fact that they bring that back from Scream 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like as a thing.
Like there's an Easter egg for you, but he says, oh, we cloned her phone, right? So if he can clone phones, they clearly know technology and can somehow hack the smart doors, right? So they're unlocking and locking doors. So I like that they added these updated elements because in my mind, I never would have thought of like, oh crap, some people have smart doors. Right. And if you hack that, the killer can just open your door. Like that's a thing to make modern audiences scared because I bet you people in the audience with smart doors were like, I thought it was safe, So
not safe at all.
So how do the cops show up? Why do the cops show up?
Didn't she hit the panic button? System? Didn't she hit the panic button on her phone?
But the phone was getting hacked the whole time, so I couldn't really tell. Like the police show up, was she able to actually hit it?
I think there's a scene where you see her hit the panic button.
Okay, well I want to bring this back up when we talk about police response times.
Oh,
carry on.
Good call, because there's a scene.
Yeah, we'll get there. But I liked this movie a lot, but there are some things which
there's a couple things.
I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but there's some things that don't make sense from a timeline, like realistic perspective. But okay,
so we know how small Woodsboro is.
That's
right.
Thank you very much. Yeah. It's a small town. Travel distances.
My question was, how many cops does this small town have?
That's also a great question.
And that final scene is the EMTs are walking in the house. I counted I think at least 5 cops, and they've already killed 3 of them.
That's correct.
And so I'm just like, that's a lot of police officers for a little tiny town.
For a sleepy California town.
Yeah.
So then we flash to Modesto, Texas, and we're in Modesto, California, and we're introduced to Sam, and she's working in a bowling alley, and she's okay, but you can definitely tell that she is troubled, if you will. And then we're introduced to
Huey.
Her boyfriend. Yeah, Huey. Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh, yeah, I was thinking Dewey, but yes, you're absolutely right. He is Huey on The Boys.
Jack Quaid, MVP of this movie. He's so good.
I liked him in that first. I haven't watched the second season, but I liked him in the first season. He is going to be the voice of Superman in the new animated stuff. He's really good.
He is. I mean, I love him on The Boys, but he is so hilarious in this movie. He's character number one when you talk about the comedy factor and everything. Like his delivery, I mean, the lines are written really funny, but like his delivery throughout this whole film of being the guy that's like, nope, like, you know, playing that like, no.
Which is interesting. He's always the one that's like, we're going this way. We're going that, you know, why would we do that?
The one that killed me in the theater, and Ryan was with me, and we both were cracking up. 1, 2, 3, absolutely not street. Like,
that was a good one. Yes,
that's such a great
good
line, and the way he delivers it. So he's great in this. Jack Quaid, the son of Dennis Quaid, if you didn't know.
And Meg Ryan, right?
And Meg Ryan, yeah.
Yeah. They're having a conversation, and they are, she's trying to get her stuff together, and she gets a phone call, and we find out that the girl who was attacked in the beginning of the movie was Sam's sister. This, to me, as soon as they say that, like, mom's out of town, I was like, well, mom's Neve Campbell. That's what we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I thought we were going.
Yeah.
Is like, you know, why else would they be attacking?
I did think that at first, too. Yeah.
I was thinking that until, like, just the timeline didn't make sense, because the last one was 12 years ago or 11 years ago.
Oh,
and she didn't have a kid in that movie.
That's fair. That's a good point.
We should mention that Tara, the sister that was attacked, is Jenna Ortega. She's going to be in the movie X, which is the Ty West's new horror movie. She's the lead. She's the lead of his movie, and then she's one of the leads in this. So I guess she's
Ty West is tight with the Radio Silence guys because of
VHS movies.
VHS. Yeah.
So anyway, so she is, and then Samantha Carpenter, who the older sister here, is Melissa Barrera.
Okay.
Just to get the actors' names, because there's a lot of newcomers in this one.
There are.
She gets the phone call from Wes Hicks, who we find out is the son of a legacy
Deputy
character.
Judy.
Deputy Judy. And now she's Sheriff Judy.
Yes. Which is just, I do, you know, when we meet these other characters, the twins who are the gal is on Yellow Jackets. She's the younger version of like that state senator on Yellow Jackets.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, and then I don't know who the other guy is. But they are the niece and nephew of
Randy.
Randy.
Was in Booksmart.
Oh, is he in Booksmart?
Yeah.
Okay. They are the niece and nephew of Randy from Scream 1 and 2, which is like this is kind of fun how they're just like, you're this guy and you're going to be related to this guy.
I like it because it's a small town. You know, people don't generally move out of small towns. And if they're all around the same age, right?
We've met Randy's sister. We meet Randy's sister in Scream 3.
But I mean, the characters in the first movie all went to high school together, so they're all the same age. It would lead you to believe that people could be having kids around the same age and all that. So it's cool the way they're connecting it. But you're right, like that sister shows up for one scene in Scream. Was it Scream 3?
Scream 3, where she gives him the videotape that Randy made to explain the rules of a trilogy.
Yeah. So they actually bring her back. So you've got that through line that it's like actually the same actor playing Randy's sister.
I kind of love the giant mural to Jamie Kennedy.
I know,
that is on the wall.
And Dylan Minnette is the kid that plays Wes Hicks, and aptly named Wes, and we see why they named him Wes. But he's been in a ton of stuff. He was in Prisoners.
Wasn't he in Don't Breathe?
He was in Don't Breathe. He was in Let Me In. So, like, this kid's been around and in some horror stuff, so you definitely would know him.
Is he the kid from 13 Reasons Why?
I never watched that one.
Maybe, but he is the kid from Goosebumps.
13 Reasons Why. You're right. And Goosebumps, yes. He's the kid in Goosebumps. That's the one that we talked about, yeah.
Yeah. This is where we meet the friend group, where it's Wes and it's the twins and like the boy twins girlfriend and
Mindy and Chad are the twins. So Mindy is played by Jasmine Savoy Brown and Chad is Mason Gooding. Mason Gooding. And
we also meet Amber, who you may recognize from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh,
she has the 2 times we've seen this poor girl. She is running around on fire.
She's the one that was like the really headstrong one that went in to kill. Yeah, that was supposed to kill Sharon Tate.
And she gets lit up with a blowtorch.
See, that's a funny touch that they did that again. I mean, that's pretty good.
We are led to believe that there is definitely Tara is part of this group, and Sam has left, and we don't know why Sam has left. But she has left for a while. 6 months, I think. She's been gone for a while. and we don't know why.
And
so,
Tara views it, and her friends view it as just abandoning her for no reason.
And she was kind of a wild child, with drugs and partying and getting in trouble.
But we find out, spoilers, the reason why is dun dun dun.
Okay, no, wait. Before we get into that, when they show Billy Loomis, did they do the Disney thing with him? They had to, right?
Yeah, because there's a filter on him.
He looked like Billy Loomis from Scream 1.
They did a good job, yeah.
Okay, because my sister saw it and she was like, that's a completely different person because apparently he's on, what's the Archie show? Riverdale?
Oh, okay.
He's on Riverdale and doesn't look like that. And I was like, well, they probably, the de-aging technology was used pretty masterfully here.
Yeah.
So this is the first hint that Sam is related to somebody. We see Billy Loomis pop up in a vision in like a mirror. And that was, I got to tell you, I was a little shocked. I did not expect to see that character pop up.
It's Skeet Ulrich. It's really him, and they did a good job.
He's got the hair. He's got like the 96 hair and
he's got the white t-shirt,
white V-neck t-shirt,
parted hair down the middle.
Yeah, it's very 90s. And he kind of he kind of hints at, to hell with it. She is Billy Loomis's daughter, and that's the reason that she left town. She finds these diaries up in the attic and realizes that their mother, I guess Billy cheated on Sydney with someone in Woodsboro, and she got pregnant and had Sam.
I tend to believe that Billy was cheating or sleeping with a lot of people. I mean, we don't really think that Billy cared about Sydney. He had an agenda, right? So like, it's not like there's some people that are like, oh, Billy would never cheat on Sydney. It's like, no, that whole thing was just a plot.
Well, that's the question, right?
He would kill her, right? So
right, yeah, like
well, did that I guess that's always been the question, is did Billy start dating Sydney knowing who she was and knowing what her mother had done, or did he get involved with Sydney after he found out what her mother had done?
I think you just asked the same question twice, and the answer is yes.
I'm saying, were
they together because of who she was, or was it happenstance?
Yes, because when we get to Scream 3, we know that this is so stupid. This is a podcast. When we get to Scream 3, we find out that Scott Foley gave Billy Loomis the information about what Maureen Prescott, Sydney's mom, did that forced Mrs. Loomis to leave Woodsboro and change Billy's life.
Yeah,
this is confusing.
The guy in Scream 3, Ghostface in Scream 3, got Billy to kill the mom, and then Billy formulated on his own a crazy plan to date Sydney and to kill her.
Okay.
So he did date her because of this, and he knew that Sydney's mom ruined his family, from his point of view and all that.
He's playing the long game.
And so, so that's the thing, because he even says it in Scream 3. He's like, I got him to do all this stuff, and then I didn't expect him to have his own plan to do all the stuff that we see in Scream 1. So the two are separated, right? So they kind of retcon it in a way to where it's like, oh, the director set up the killing of the mom, but he did not set up Stu and Billy. That was Billy's own.
Okay. So yeah, we find out that she is there's a scene in Scream 1 where Randy lays out the rules about why Billy's the killer, and it never made sense why they were in the movie theater, or why they were in the video store. If you go back and watch it now, Billy is actively flirting with or hitting on another girl in that theater or in that movie store, and the theory is that is Sam's mom.
Yeah, but it's speculation. Again, I think that he was, he didn't really care about Sydney, and he wasn't getting any from Sydney, as we saw in the movie. So, I think he was just sleeping with whoever was around. He didn't care.
And he got a girl pregnant.
Yeah.
And then that girl had Sam, and then
and so
Sam
there was
blows up the marriage.
Well, there's a traumatic moment to where, Sam found these diaries and then yelled at the mom, "You lied to me. You never told me who my real father was, blah, blah, blah." And then didn't realize that with all the fighting and stuff, like the dad had walked in and was right behind her, and the dad didn't even know. So the dad found out, abruptly like that, and his whole life he had been lied to. So that's why he left. And so it's interesting that you kind of see they're doing a really good job of mirroring what happened in the original movie, because now they lost a dad who left town because of a cheating or a lying mom, which is a total mirror of Sydney and her parents. And so they do a really good job of like creating that through line.
As good as I think that we all thought that the Halloween 2018 was one of the better quote unquote requels that they've done, I think this is on the level of the 2018 Halloween as far as like tying everything back to that first movie.
Yeah, they do. They both do a really good job. I agree,
which is pretty impressive.
Well,
so
and I would say the level of difficulty is greater here because Halloween 2018 worked by basically canning
that's a great
45
point.
movies.
This movie makes all 4 previous films canon. So this is literally a 5th movie in the series.
Yeah, this isn't like we're going to go back to Scream. This is a direct sequel to Scream 1.
And I think that Halloween, for instance, did that to clean up the mess and to make it easier. And to these guys' credit, they did not do that. And especially with the
they also had a lot fewer movies to contend
they only
with.
had 4 to deal with.
And Scream took a lot. Didn't take as many weird turns as the Halloween franchise
totally,
has.
but it would have been really easy to make a.
It would have been, that would have been the easy route.
And so they and plus for the fans, like to this entire series credit, each sequel, and like Joe said, with Sydney being that through line, and all 3 of the leads, the returning legacy characters being in each one, this series never went and said, "Oh no, this person was really this," or like, "Oh, this didn't happen," or "This didn't exist." Like each sequel has carried on, and all the damage has added up throughout the series, and they continued with that, which is challenging, and I think for the fans is really great that they don't have to say like, "Oh well, my favorite whatever doesn't count anymore," whatever the movie that had the best kill or the characters I liked, oh well, it didn't exist. So it's kind of cool the way they do it.
I think
it also helps that the worst Scream movie is better than about 80% of the Halloween movies.
Oh yeah, like Scream 3.
Right.
Scream 3 is the worst one, but it's not even a bad movie. That's the thing.
Right.
It's kind of like how we talk about Marvel. It's the Thor Dark World of Scream movies.
It is the weakest link in the Scream franchise, but it's not Friday the 13th. Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah. There are some really clever, good ideas in 3. Like 3, even though it's not Kevin Williamson, it still did have some of the same ideas and spirit. It carries on with the meta stuff. It's messier, but it's still
a different kind of meta.
Yeah.
So we get our characters back into Woodsboro. There's a moment between Sam and Tara where Sam kind of drops the bomb on her and she tells her to get out and I don't want to see you. And then the killings start again. So we talk to the twins, Randy's niece and nephew, and they lay out the rules for the requel, like the rebooted sequel.
Well, Vince dies first. I mean, we got to talk about.
I guess that's true. We do.
So they leave the hospital.
They go to the bar.
Amber says, "Let's leave her alone. She needs time to rest." Right. So Amber gets everybody out of there, except for Jack Quaid. Richie stays with his girlfriend, Sam, and Tara, right? So they leave and they go to a pool hall. We see Vince, who's this guy that...
the skeezy dude.
Yeah, and one of the girls...
Not Morgan Wallen.
What was... it was the other girl? Liv.
The dude twins' girlfriend.
Liv, who's dating... Chad. She messed around with this guy the previous year before she was with Chad, and so he's kind of stalking her outside of school, and then they see him at the pool hall. They get into an altercation. He flashes a knife at Chad, who's like, "I'm going to introduce him to Hobbs and Shaw." That was a funny line. Like I like some of these lines are really silly and fun. But anyway, so they all get kicked out of there, and we see Vince peeing in an alley by himself, and then really tense moment. Car lights turn on. And we get this first kill, which is
this. I think to me, out of all of the kills, the one legacy character that we lose was pretty intense. But this one is so fast, and so sometimes the ghost face will it's a lead up, right? Like it's a 5-minute lead up to the kill. This one he just walks up and sticks him in the neck and walks away, and I was like, that's more unnerving than any of the other kills in this movie, just because it's so nonchalant.
Well,
he just sick, and then he walks away.
Well, we already got an idea from that first scene, even though Tara doesn't die. So he stomps on her leg and breaks her bone.
Yeah.
And then he goes to put the knife down to stab her. She puts her hands up and it goes through
Right
the
through.
hand.
Right
Like, we've
through,
never
yeah.
seen anything like that before. So, like, this Ghostface, and I mean, you can say this is a different Ghostface. They all are, but it's like, I think that's also to their credit. It's like, yeah, each Ghostface isn't going to kill the same way. So this is a much more just murder happy, like.
He's also not as what's the is it
Vaudevillian?
vaudeville? Yeah, he's not as
Yeah.
vaudevillian, right? Like in the
Yeah.
other movies, the Ghostface has been super animated and like bouncing all over the place, and he, like a very much a stunt performer. Where this one has kind of like a Michael Myers cadence to
They
him.
made him
where
scarier.
he's very deliberate in what he's doing, and he's not like
They made Ghostface
hit the balls with
scarier,
a beer
right?
bottle.
Like the
Yeah,
other movies
yeah.
are scary; they have horror elements. But this Ghostface, they took away that slapstick element, which was fun in the other movies. But this one was more intimidating, to where you were like, "Oh crap!" And you see it right from this first kill, like you say, Joe. Like he comes in, stabs in the neck,
And just
Vince
walks
starts
away.
bleeding out. Yeah. So now that the kill is now they realize, oh, Vince was Stu's
nephew, which I was like, the fact that they keep referencing Stu, and I was like, well, he's got to come. I mean, it's got to be Matthew Lillard, right? Like he has to come back. They're at Stu's house at the end of this movie. Like that's Stu's,
which was a great
nephew.
reveal because they never show the house.
Here's the problem, Kevin. I've watched that movie so many times. As soon as they walked in the house, and I was like, well, that's the staircase. That's like I knew exactly where they were.
But okay, so
I think the diehards know,
yeah,
but
my
I think
sister
the
also
average
knew where we were the entire time.
but they
As soon
hit
as-
it. The party, the lights are out. There's lights going on. Like I think they did a really good job of being close up when they get to Stu's house that we don't know is Stu's house yet. So like they did a really good job of hiding it for unless you're just like an uber super diehard,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the way, as soon as like, they walk in, and then you look to the side, and it's the same setup that they had in the first movie with the couch and the big arch. Yes, I knew exactly where they were, and I was like, well, this is it. Like this has to be this character. There's no other option.
So anyway, so
they
they
kill
realize
him. Yeah,
that
this is where
the killings
they
are
talk to the
happening.
twins.
There's a connection. So they lay out the rules just like their uncle would have.
Right, and they basically like you're going to lose your you bring in your legacy characters and people who are related to those characters, and those people are not safe. And I
We
like,
can't skip over. I mean, at this point, they've gotten Dewey.
that's true, which I think
Because-
is he to me is the second MVP because this is a very different Dewey than we've ever gotten in these movies.
I don't
Dewey
think
has
I've ever
always-
seen David Arquette this good. Like he is so good in this movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Doofy. Well, that's pretty spot on for the entire character of Dewey.
Yeah, they did make
he's
him
kind of a
a
goofball with the heart of gold.
They took away Dewey being a joke, like a gag, that he's a goofball, right? Because
He's a broken man now.
The scary movies make fun of him because they were essentially making fun of him in the real movies, and they really amp it up, and like he's a big doofus. And this movie, like you said, he's broken. He's obviously been through some troubles. He lives in a trailer. He's not the sheriff anymore. And 4, he's the sheriff, and
Right.
now he doesn't. So it's like, what happened to him? And basically, Sam and Sam says we need to go to someone who knows what's going on, and the only person of the 3 that lives in town still is Dewey.
Is Dewey, and he gives them the deal, and he was like, "How long, talking about Richie? How long have you known him?"
He
I don't know, like-
throws it out there right from the
He's
beginning.
like, "It's always the love interest," and of course they hit you with that, and they do a great job of distancing Richie. Spoilers: Richie's the other killer, of keeping Richie at a distance and making him be like, "I'm not going in there, or I'm not doing that." 1, 2, 3, absolutely not. Like, driving away, getting out of Woodsboro. He's the one who's always like, I've never seen these stab movies. And we see him watching the movies.
They do such a great job. Again, like kudos to the
and
writing.
he plays it well. Like he plays
Yes.
it very likable.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's so. I mean, because when I was watching the movie, even before I knew the reveal, I'm just like, I love him. He's the best character, and not that that necessarily changes things, but like he was a favorite, not the killer guy to me in my mind throughout the movie.
Right.
And I'm just like, he's so good. He's so likable. He's so funny. But the way that they write it, like you said, Joe, I mean, they drop all these little hints to where in the room, we think that he's watching the stab movies because he says earlier, I've never seen him. And now there's this killer supposedly recreating them. He's like, I want to be prepared.
Right.
But now we know he's some crazy diehard lunatic that like just gets off on
Toxic
watching
fandom.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get there, but
That's exactly what it
he's
is.
watching them because he can't help himself because he is such a diehard fan of these movies that he's living in one and also watching them at the same time.
Right. And that was a good head fake as far as like the advertising people, is because they released that silver mask. When we see them doing the preview or the James A. Janice from the Dead Meat podcast, which is very good if you haven't checked that out, when they're kind of railing on Scream 8 or Stab 8, we see like a silver mask, and it's a very different Stab movie.
Yeah.
But they released an image of that silver mask, and they were like, people were just like, oh my God, they're changing it. They're doing blah, blah, blah. Well, they're not. That was a mask from Stab 8,
But,
not
like,
Scream 5.
I don't understand how any diehard fans of this series, knowing how much they reference a movie within a movie, would not automatically just go, hold on, they're clearly not going to make the Stab or the Ghostface mask chrome. Like, that's got to be from a Stab movie. Like, I don't know. I just think that seems obvious, having just watched all the movies.
I agree with you, but I also think in the requel world we live in, maybe, we don't know like what they were, we don't know.
No,
maybe.
I get it. But knowing what we know about these guys who, when they were hired, we said they're going to treat this franchise right.
Yeah.
But
sure.
anyway.
They lay out the rules. Sam, I think, is this where she says that she's Billy Loomis's daughter to everybody? Because she gets up and leaves.
I don't remember if she says it. I don't think she tells them then, but I think
she does, because they're like, you're a legacy character. You're related to, you're on the list. Oh no, they accuse her of being the killer. That's
right.
what it is.
No,
Yeah.
So it's Mindy, really. Chad isn't really the Randy character. Mindy is just like her uncle, and she goes through the rules, and she talks about requels, and she explains the whole thing, like, basically, so Stab 8 is a requel, and that's why fans are mad about it, and it's changed things, and we're watching in real life, we're watching a requel. And so she's going through defining the movie that we're watching, again, this great meta commentary like Kevin Williamson did. And so she says anything can happen. They bring in the legacy characters, point to Dewey. Anyone can die, right? Though you can kill the legacy characters in these movies, and we come to see that. And then also it could be like the person you think is the final girl could die, like,
right,
or could be the killer. So they're talking about the rules change in requels, which we're watching. And so Sam obviously gets very upset because her sister was almost killed. Someone almost tried to kill her in the hospital, and now her friends are accusing her of being the killer. So she walks out of there.
This is where we get another clip of Billy in the rear view mirror, where he's just, Billy is off his rocker. This is Billy at the end of Scream, where he's just like, just go in there and gut them all and stab them. She's like, I'm not like you, blah, blah, blah. So then we get not introduced,
but I thought
Wes,
he gave her more of a pep talk. I remember him being like, hey, let's find this killer, whoever's doing this, and let's get him. I don't remember him being like, hey, just go kill your friends because you're crazy. I thought he was like, hey, we're gonna put an end to this thing.
She says, I'm not like you, and he's like, you're just like me. Yeah. And it's, gives him the whole like, maybe right, like this is the other red herring where it's like, maybe we don't know, maybe,
right, like maybe it's one of those subconscious things we've seen that in other movies recently, where it's like, does she know she's the killer? If she's seeing Billy and she does have a problem, they didn't go this route, but it makes you think as the viewer, well,
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
there's two of them, could be.
Yeah.
So then we meet Deputy or Sheriff Judy and her son Wes, and this is a pretty good like little head fake. This is the scene that Kevin and I were talking about as far as like response time, where Judy is driving to get sushi or something, and Ghostface kills her and says, "I'm gonna kill your son."
Well, he calls her.
Yeah, it does the
on
whole
her cell
thing.
phone, does the thing, and she's driven, again, small town, she's driven a few blocks away at this point, and he says,
Those
well,
are big blocks.
The next time you see your son, he's going to be dead. So she puts her sirens on, she does a U-turn, she gets home. Meanwhile, Wes is taking a shower upstairs. His phone is, by the sink, so it's not anywhere near him. And she comes running to the door. I think this is a good surprise kill. I mean, they don't linger on it. They don't make you wait.
No.
He's not stalking her. I mean, she runs to the door. He walks out of nowhere. Boom.
But we should say at this point, she's already called for backup.
Okay, yes.
The police chief of this town has
says,
called
go to my
for
house.
backup. And nobody shows up.
The sheriff. The boss of all these cops says, I need backup at my house right now in this small town. So, yes, thank you. She drives home.
Right.
He kills her instantly, but we do get some lingering of her dying and bleeding out, whatever. Okay, so at this point, now we go back to Wes. He sees he has a missed call from his mom. I mean, this is... I like and hate this because I think the head fakes in this scene are fantastic.
That's the new jump scare.
But it also goes on for 5 or 6 minutes.
Right.
Meanwhile, the sheriff 10 minutes ago called for backup at her house, and no cops show up between that time. It makes no sense.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of... Also, I think, if I'm right, and Wes is standing at the front door, and he has those windows, he probably should have seen his mom's body.
Probably. I mean, I think they were like small, like stained windows. You know, it wasn't like
either way
super clear.
Yeah,
but
right.
Most bathroom windows have some sort of opacity so people can't see you.
That makes sense.
But I know what you mean, though, because I didn't know it was going to go linger on all the fakes, and I did really like all the fake outs because I thought he was going to look at the front door and like open it, and there she would be. I did not expect the whole this is the stalking part.
Right.
And so, yeah, he's going and he's getting their sushi plates out and everything for the food his mom is picking up, getting the wasabi out of the pantry or the fridge, getting the plates set. Like, everything is a head fake of the close the fridge door there should be the killer.
Which
all
is
that
the new
stuff.
head fake, right? Like, that's the new jump scare where we're going to open a door into another door, and then there's not going to be anything behind it. Like,
It was
that's
great.
That's the new thing.
It keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. Meanwhile, it's insane no one from the police has shown up yet.
And nobody else has called him.
Yeah. But then...
Right.
And then Ghostface shows up. Yeah.
And slowly stabs him through the throat.
Was this the neck one that you see?
This is the neck one where it
Okay.
comes in one and out the other side.
I mean, this was another kill where you just don't see this, especially not in the Scream movies, but like close up, no cuts, knife through the throat, sitting in the throat and out the other side, and he's, blood coming out of the mouth and all that stuff. I mean, this is a great kill.
Yeah, it's a really good one. So now we've lost Wes and his mom, and Deputy Judy from Scream 4 is now gone.
Yeah. So, and Sam drives up, right? Like, she sees all the sirens, and then
she drives
shows up.
past it, and then we should say that Dewey reached out to Sid and Gail. The Sydney reveal is good. I think that showing her and not putting her, I think that was the detriment of Scream 4, is she kind of goes front and center and takes the heat off of Kirby, played by Hayden Panettiere, who I think I would have loved for her to come back in this movie, but that's not the case.
She's a great character. She's
Kirby's
my favorite
great.
part of 4. Yeah.
So like I think having Sydney show up the last half hour, 40 minutes of this movie, I think was the smart thing.
Well, they Scream 3'd it, right? Isn't that what 3 is?
Well,
she's like
Scream,
not in the movie
only
until the
because they didn't have her initially, so they rewrote that script to write Sydney out. And then Wes asked her to come back. So if you watch that, she's in it like they get her for like 2 weeks.
But either way, that's what they did here too. It's still the same. Whether it's because from what she said in interviews, it was the same thing. They didn't have her. She didn't want to do another movie without Wes. And the Radio Silence guys wrote her a letter, a really nice letter about how much they wanted to honor Wes. They said in the movie how they honor Wes and his legacy in these films. And they did such a good job convincing her that she agreed to be in it. But she didn't agree to come back and be the lead, like the main character.
Right. And she's not. Yeah.
She does the same thing as 3. She shows up later on in the movie. We see her not secluded, but now just living her life of her own. And
somewhere else.
Yeah. But I thought it was really touching. One is a nice conversation between Sid and Dewey, and they've always been close. Dewey shows up to
That's
college.
That's the other thing that people seem to forget is that, like, Dewey's sister had her head squished in part 1.
Sid's best friend was Dewey's sister.
Right.
But so Dewey and Sid have always been close. And 2, he shows up at college just to check on her because he hears things are going bad. Like, Dewey is, we know he's a great character, but he's always been really protective and treated Sydney like a sister of his own and the sister he lost. So that's a nice conversation. But also, the acting that David Arquette has to do, knowing how badly his marriage to Courteney Cox ended, like how much heartbreak he went through, like he messed up and did some stuff. They had a really bad breakup, and it sent him on a path in real life of drugs and alcohol and
professional wrestling, baby.
Yeah. But I mean, think about that though. Like, it's really like he's acting through some demons that he experienced in real life, and then has to do the same thing on screen. So he's tapping into some real experience.
I think they both were, because she's insanely good as well. When they're on screen together, they've always had chemistry, and you can tell, like, they start dating, I think, at Scream 1, and by the time they get to 4, I think they are Splitsville.
Yeah, well, she's Courtney Cox Arquette in 3, and she's Courtney Cox in 4.
Okay. So, but they
poster.
always had chemistry, and I think that they had really good chemistry here too.
They do, but
as
so
like
I was
the
going to
broken
say,
up couple.
But the heartbreak, even with him sending a text message, you can tell David Arquette's going through some stuff and working through it on screen. So don't come here, and then he writes, Ghostface is back. Don't come here, smiley face. I probably shouldn't have written that smiley face. And then he writes, I still, and then he deletes it. Like, that's a heartbreaking moment in a horror movie that you're not really like expecting that, but it hits you in the feels.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then of course the reunion and all that is really great too. But I just hats off to David Arquette for acting his ass off in this movie.
Yeah, he's insanely good. So this is where Sam drives by the house and we see Gail for the first time at there. And then
we see her as a morning show host that Dewey's watching in his trailer. He still obviously loves her. And then she shows up to A, see Dewey and check on them, and B, get the story because they're producers.
So they have their interaction there, and then I think we go back to the hospital.
The deputy shows up to help.
Oh, that's right.
out
You're not. If you're here, who's watching my sister?
The deputy who's on guard of the sister is there, who's at the hospital, and they're killing all these connections. So I got to go, and then it's really cool that like David Arquette goes into the passenger seat. Like, what are you waiting for? Let's go. Like, it was a good moment. Okay, so small town.
Yeah.
In the daytime.
Yeah.
They go in the car. By the time they get to the hospital, it's the dead
dark.
of night.
Yeah.
Also, what hospital?
Who's working in this hospital?
Well, that's
I don't
question.
know that are we sure it's night? She's on a private floor, so it could just be she's on a floor and they didn't bother to turn on all the other lights.
But like the entire floor gets turned off?
There's no workers. They killed one sheriff. There was not one nurse checking on her. There was not one.
Well, they comment that they're moving her to a private floor.
Oh,
so,
that's true.
So
I mean, that's fine, but isn't there a worker? I mean, okay, if her monitors go off and she's coding, who is checking on her?
But at this point, I mean, presumably at this point, she's not in ICU, so like they don't necessarily need to have one nurse whose only job. I mean, that's expensive,
Okay,
that is true.
I get what you're saying. It's a small town, so okay, that makes more sense. But still, like, I just thought that there's one guard on duty. Ghostface takes out that guard, and the entire floor is empty. But at least
with no lights. I've never been in a hospital where there were no lights on.
Well, they
the
turned
floor.
off the lights, and if they turned off the lights, the generators would come on. I guess if they physically turned them off instead of cutting them, I guess they could be off.
Yeah, I just like I said, they did reference that they were moving her to a private floor, so it's not weird that there's nobody else on the floor. I mean,
that's
no,
fair.
you could argue what hospital has an entire floor sitting vacant
in
but,
Woodsboro.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, they're not that big of a town. Why do they? And this is a big hospital floor. You see how many rooms and hallways and desks. So I just don't think it adds up. Even if they explain that, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And again,
I have another issue with this scene as well.
Okay, what's that?
Okay, so Ghostface shows up. There's a big fight. Dewey does not hesitate, and he shoots Ghostface in the chest, and the Ghostface kind of staggers back and falls into a thing. Look at the height. So we know who this killer is at this point, right? Like, this is Amber. This killer is like 2 or 3 inches taller than Dewey.
Also, Amber doesn't have leverage over Dewey with a knife.
Not at
sorry
all.
to tell you, Dewey's
gonna win that fight if it's an 18-year-old girl.
This movie struggles with this the entire time with who the killer is.
I honestly think this is a different killer. I wonder if this change, like if the killer's changed at one point.
Oh, after filming,
this scene is already filmed, and
Okay.
they're like, we can't go back and do that again. So I wonder if that's what happened here. And
I
that's
wonder
why the
because
killer's so tall.
These guys are smart, and it seems like they cover their bases on most of the stuff. And I know we've done some nitpicking, but as far as stuff with the killers, I just feel like these guys would have been like, that can't be her because the height doesn't, like, you know what I mean? I figure, to go back to the beginning of the movie, I don't believe that could be Amber as the killer. Because again,
that's what I'm saying.
When you see Tara at the door, Ghostface is up over where like the peephole size is, so he would be much bigger than Amber.
Do you know who is really tall? Matthew Lillard.
Oh, you wonder if maybe they had a stand-in hoping they would get him and couldn't get him or something. Okay, so but for a second, so if you think that Amber isn't the killer because she was in that video, it's not like Ghostface FaceTimed. He sent a video file which could be pre-recorded.
Right.
Right? So, which means that if he's holding a knife and Amber's in the background, that means Amber isn't the Ghostface in this scene because someone was holding a knife saying, I'm
No,
gonna
yeah.
kill her.
But here's the other problem. We know that Jack is in...
The towns aren't that far away, though. They
aren't?
No, they're both in California. They're just maybe if they're a couple hours away, he clearly wasn't with Sam that night. He did the thing and drove back that morning. You know what I mean? Like,
I guess that's possible.
But you're right. I mean, that is a question. But the point is that couldn't have been Amber. It just the sizes don't match up.
Sure.
I do think they recorded that. I don't think they did it like weeks earlier. They could have, but I'm guessing he recorded that video outside her window when he was there and sent the file. All that. So the size thing is weird. In this scene,
I will say that when Kevin Williamson sold the treatment for Scream 1 to sweeten the deal to get more money, he had treatments for 2 and 3 ready to go. And the original reveal in 3 is that Stu was going to be the killer in 3. He was going to survive. Matthew Lillard is in Scream 2. You can see him walking around like in the background on the college campus, and that's on purpose.
They set it up so that you
by the time you get to 3, that Stu is where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought we were getting with this, and that didn't happen.
But to mention what happens though, he gets Tara, who's been hobbling away and her legs hurt and everything. He gets her and Sam and Richie all into the elevator, and he waits a second and he's like, I got to go back.
You got to always come back.
Yeah, and so it's a nice reference to what happened in 3. Was it when
1, 2, and 3? They all get shot
happens
in the head
repeatedly.
They do. But remember when Sydney's like, the head, Dewey, the head. You got to shoot. Like she drives it home in one of those movies. Was it 3? I think
probably
where she yells at him, or it could have been 4. But anyway, so he's like, oh, I remember this time, which I think was a really nice reference to Sydney yelling at him about the head thing. And so he goes back, and it's a cool slow motion shot where he's dumping the shells out, reloading his gun, and a really nice hero moment for Dewey. Dewey has been so selfless throughout this entire series.
He's been stabbed a lot,
and he keeps coming back. And these kids don't have anything to do. Like, these kids come to town, show up, he's doing his own thing, dealing with his own problems, and what does he do but pick up and leave to protect them? And here he gives his own life to try to stop this.
He gets stabbed in the gut, and then that Dewey's been stabbed so many times that you're just like, when they stab him, and I was like, oh, he'll be fine.
Yeah, but then they gut him.
And then they drag the blade across his stomach, and they stab him in the back and pull the thing up. There's blood everywhere pouring onto the floor.
And they say it's an honor to kill him. The first legacy character, like of the 3 that we kill.
Right. And then we lose it. And I didn't get emotional at that. And I was like, we needed to, as much as I didn't want to, like, we needed to lose Dewey because of the head fake for 4 movies.
Yeah.
This needed to happen. Now, when Sid and Gail come together for the first time, that's what got me. And I'm sitting there, I was like, what is happening right now? Why am I
what is this funny feeling?
But yeah, like, they have a great moment, right? They've lived this life together the last, since 1996. They've been entwined with each other. I do like the way that both are just like, we're ending this
and
right
Courtney
now.
Cox, though, I mean, this is her ex-husband, father of her children, that this character, that plays the character that died.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure she could tap into her own, and who knows, when he was going through this rough time, maybe she had some scares or worries that something would happen to him, the father of her children. So, like,
sure.
I think it adds that extra level these actors are able to tap into, and why it seems so real. I mean, yes, they're good actors, but these are real life, formerly married people, and so they're very close to each other still.
Yeah, I think that the interaction with her and Neve Campbell is really intense, and it's really good. And Neve Campbell, who's a I feel like she's kind of stepped away from acting.
I haven't seen
most
her
part. I haven't seen her in a long time.
Yeah.
This is where we see Richie and
she has credits in House of Cards and movies in 2018, 2019, 2020. So I guess
she's
we
been
just
doing some
seen
stuff.
She's been working, yeah.
Yeah, so this is where we see Sam and your 2 final girls, quote unquote, come face to face with each other. And I do like immediately where she's like, you're Billy Loomis's kid. And she's like, how did you know? And she's like, it's a small town. So they basically are, Richie says, we're doing what nobody else does. We're getting the fuck out of here. We're leaving Woodsboro.
Which I this is really smart because this is again a meta commentary on all these movies to where they actually wrote it to actually have some characters wisen up, or know, I mean, obviously this knowing the reveal is a little different, but what you think of is like, no, this is what all the dumb people do. We're getting out of here,
right? And they take off and they're going down the road. And I do like that Sid kind of tries to talk her into staying, and they're all just like, no. And I love that she's like, don't worry about it.
No, good luck.
I planted a tracker on her car.
Oh.
And Gail's like, you
like
did what?
That seems like something Gail Weather would do.
It's a very Gail Weathers move. Also, I just realized this, but you know how you have Sheriff Brackett?
Yeah.
My mother's maiden name is Weathers.
Oh, that's funny. I was going to say, I don't remember Sheriff Batisi in this
movie.
No,
definitely Weathers, though.
That's funny.
So they take off, and we realize that this inhaler that has kind of been a thing for Tara, they don't have, and they realize that it's
whenever you see an inhaler in a movie, that's gonna
red flag.
They're gonna need it, and
you're gonna need that later for whatever reason.
Oh, it's Chekhov's inhaler.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. So they get to they go to Amber's house, and as soon as they're in the house, I was like, well, if this is where I think they are, this is flippin' brilliant.
You're very observant. I mean, kudos to you for catching that, 'cause I just watched these movies and it just never, again, like with the party going on and stuff, it just didn't click for me. And when they got that reveal, that zoom out thing, I was like, oh.
I saw the staircase, I saw the hallway like on the side of the staircase, and when they opened the door to go to the basement, it's the same shot as they opened the door to go to the garage.
Which I thought was just kind of like homage, but it's truly literal homage.
Yes. So the twin boy ends up trying to hook up with his girlfriend and kind of like poo-poos it, and she gets all pissy and she takes off. And he goes out after her, and we think we lose this kid. Like the Ghostface kind of slashes him up just like he does to Tara. And we see he kind of like sees off in the distance, and this is when Gail and Sid show up and they realize where they are. And of course, these two are like, well, this is the final showdown. We have nothing left to do here. Richie and Amber clear the house out, which should be the other massive red herring where they're like, everybody get out. Both of them are clearing out the entire house. Do they kill the girlfriend?
No, Ghostface kills the girlfriend at the very end of like when you're figuring out what's going on.
Is that right?
That's the reveal. So Sydney basically comes. Okay. So they show up and Amber hobbles out and acts like, oh, they're killing us in here. Remember?
Oh yeah, I do. That's a good line where they look at each other like, do you believe that? They're like, no, that's fake.
It's a
and
trap.
They shoot at her. Yeah,
and she shoots. Good. So Amber shoots Gail. So now Gail is kind of wallowing.
I also got to tell you, she got shot in the stomach in Scream 2. She should just start wearing vests all the time. Like it's almost the exact same spot too.
So Sydney goes in there, and you get a really nice the shot to where you can tell memories are coming back. She's
back in Stu's house.
Yeah, it's full circle. She gets a call from Ghostface, which is a really good call because Sydney's basically like, I'm getting bored of this. Click, don't hang up on me. She's like, I'm not dealing with this. And she says, I give you 5 seconds to come out. I'm starting to shoot.
And she's just shooting into doors. Like she's not even waiting. She shoots into one door and she hits Richie. And of course, now you're thinking like, well, he was hiding the entire time. He's not in the getup. Finally, they clear everything out. They pull Gail into they close the door and Richie stabs Sam in the stomach.
Right.
And
well, meanwhile, Sam had found Tara tied up.
Right.
And it looks like she's not going to untie her because she's like, well, is Tara in on all this?
Because Richie does kind of plant that seed that maybe she's in on it.
They're all starting to turn on each other, so you leave not knowing if she's untied Tara. Right. And then, Richie and the killer actually go over the staircase.
Yes.
So you're thinking, well, they just fought and fell off a flight of the stairs. There's no way Richie's the killer at this point. Well, he is.
He is. Yeah. And this is they get the same scene in the kitchen where it's the big reveal in the kitchen is the exact same scene from Scream 1. This is the reveal that Richie is a toxic fan and hated Scream Stab 8 so much.
Which this is so, I think, ballsy of them to go this route because you know how toxic fandom can be. And they weren't afraid to just straight up say it, Stab 8. Have you ever heard of another 8th movie with toxic fandom?
Maybe
that's a requel.
Maybe.
I mean, they straight up are calling out Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi toxic fandom, which I think was a ballsy move and really relevant, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he basically says, I'm going to write my own movie. They're going to do a Stab 9, and it's going to be right back to basics, and they're going to kill all these characters and do yada, yada, yada.
I like this overall, but it also feels a little too familiar because I feel like we already did this with the killer that wants to be the star of a movie that they're going to write. Yeah, and then frame someone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's some point, it just feels like, how many more times can we do this exact same formula? You know what I mean? There's a meta-ness to it, but it also feels very familiar.
Yeah, I think that's what a requel is, though, right? It's supposed to feel familiar.
True, but I just mean that in the sequels, they also felt familiar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they've already pulled this card out and done we're people that love the movies, but for whatever reason they're gonna be writing their own movies now about what we're doing, and you know what I mean? Like, it just to me felt a little familiar having just watched them. Again, I still enjoyed it, but I think this has to be the last time they do this exact same thing.
Maybe, I don't know. So Sam and Richie kind of have their throwdown fight, and this is where there's a knife kind of off to the side, and we see Skeet Ulrich in a mirror and just kind of gives her like a head nod, and she gives in. She gives in to the Loomis side of her, and she destroys Richie with this knife. She flips him over and just starts gutting him with this knife.
This is the most violent thing we've ever seen in these movies.
Yes. Yeah, big time. In the kitchen, for whatever reason, Amber has been... they threw like hand sanitizer on her face, and then I was like, well,
turned the stove on,
and then she's gonna get set on fire like she did at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing.
That is funny. I didn't make that connection. It's
the same actress. And so Sid and Gail kind of dispatch her. As all of our characters are leaving, the killer comes back at the end, and then Gail and Sydney turn on her and shoot her in the chest.
Yeah, doesn't she give the gun to Gail this time and actually lets her finish? Because Sydney always finishes the...
No, Gail kills Billy Loomis in Scream 1. Gail shoots him in the head.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But Sydney usually in the next ones always kills like the last moment. I think she hands the gun to Gail and lets her kill.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then so all of our characters kind of walk out. Sam and Tara are reunited. And Gail,
the twins are alive. Both of them.
The twins are alive. They pull a Dewey, and
Mindy gets stabbed once and then plays dead the rest of the time,
right?
Because she's not that hurt, and the other guy just
laid there on the ground.
Yeah,
I think this was impressive that they figured this out and they were able to capture what was so great about that first one and use it in 2021. I think this is a really good entry.
I think it helps too that it got rough for Scream to continue to be so meta because like there's only so many things you can deconstruct about the horror genre, but over the last 15 years with the rise of art house horror, it gave them some fresh material for them and requels. It gave the two things gave them some fresh meat to dig into,
which I think was really smart.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, it's really the commentary they give, like it feels familiar and for the most part in a good way. Like all the things that Scream fans want, they give them all that, and it treats the legacy really nicely. And also like the four Wes at the party, they're celebrating Wes, their friend who died, and clearly when they're cheering for Wes, it's Wes Craven. But then also with the new commentaries, it felt fresh enough to where it's like, oh, these are new modern things that we're dealing with. And so they had the best of both worlds, and it was written in a way to where none of it felt cheap or easy. You know, they really crafted a script that worked in both ways.
It's nice when the original people can return, like creators can return, but I don't know that it's always for the best, right? Like it's, I mean, you know, one of the best Muppet movies was written by someone who basically just loved the Muppets that much. And, you know, and it's like, I can't help but think that the Alien movies would be better if they took them away from him. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's not a bad idea.
And so it's like, I think it's about finding talent that has a true and abiding passion for the source material and they did that here.
Look at The Mandalorian versus the prequels. George Lucas wrote and directed all the prequels.
Right. There's another good example of like you don't always necessarily want the creator back.
And look at what Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing with Star Wars. So it's like,
absolutely.
I think this was good stuff.
Yeah, no, this was a fun movie.
My only fear is that this might reignite that 90s horror stuff again.
Well, we're going to get a new Final Destination. It's already coming out this year.
There's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming out again.
I mean, we live in the world of reboot. That's what this movie's saying, right? So, like, what's so smart about this movie is not only are they self-aware of themselves, but they're self-aware of the industry, and they are calling out studios and remakes and requels and all that. So, I mean, that's the world we live in.
It is.
Absolutely. You're only going to get more of it. So
there you go.
Keep an eye out for the relaunch of The Faculty, right?
No, please, God, no.
Well, the question is, though, too, so now, are we going to get a Scream 6? I would say probably.
Yes.
But are these guys going to become the Scream guys? No, I want another Ready or Not. I mean, I loved this movie, and this movie's really good, but think about how good Ready or Not was, an original horror property by this team. Like, I want more of those, like, not a sequel to that. You know what I'm saying? I want more original Ready or Nots. I want more of that, not just these guys become the Scream sequel guys.
Yeah, I don't know if these guys are going to want, like, they enjoyed making a Scream movie, no doubt, but, like, I don't know that they're going to want to do nothing but that. Like, I think they're going to be, I think they're going to be like, we've done that now.
Okay.
That's my guess.
I kind of hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. Like, pass the torch, they set it up, it's really good.
Yeah.
And,
But, well, anyway, I guess that is it for this one. Let's go around the virtual table, and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
And this is Tom. You can follow me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at Facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online, Facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group, and of course, don't forget our Patreon, Patreon.com/Real Spoilers, where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content. It's mostly Joe. We should call it Jonas content.
Oh, I like that.
Joe's been doing a good job on those. I've been editing the Scream ones that have come out, and he does a good job with the guests and everything. I mean, really, if you like Scream movies and you enjoyed us talking about this one, Joe has this whole series on the Patreon, and it's a huge help for the show, and they're really good episodes.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so you can, again, do that at patreon.com/Real Spoilers. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Doofy isn't disabled.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, 'cause we already warned you.